Okay, second task for today. In Cold Blood, looking at The Last to See Them Alive, part one. So we're going to work through some rhetorical strategies today and how to analyze them. Okay, and that's going to be our main focus here with In Cold Blood. So I do want you to journal today. Hopefully you were focusing on the level of detail that he uses to describe both character and town. I want you to pick for your journal, this is your written journal, right? I want you to pick one moment to focus on in part one. And for those of you who are not done with part one, or you're choosing not to read the entire novel, which I know I mentioned is okay if you need to, like, if it's too much on your plate, you could still do this, okay? You can pick a couple of pages of part one to look at a character that he seems to be describing, a setting he seems to be describing, and just write about why he's doing that. So keep in mind, again, this is a rhetorical analysis skill, right? So we're prepping for the test right now, looking at how a writer uses descriptive details and why they use them and what the effect on the reader is definitely a rhetorical strategy that you can look at and analyze. So this is really worthwhile. As you're spending about 10 minutes writing about this, okay, give yourself like 7 to 10 minutes to write. Practice your writing skills, right? So pull out short quotes rather than those long ones. Practice the analysis of the descriptive details, because again, that's going to be great practice for the essay. Okay, so pause right now, find a great example, write about it for approximately 7 to 10 minutes, and then we'll move on to the next task. Okay, so this is something I do want you to post in Google Classroom. I thought it might be helpful to look at the use of parallelism. Again, another rhetorical strategy that is important to pay attention to with writers. Why and how are they using parallelism? How is it building an argument or framing, the purpose of their piece? So if you look at pages 3 through 5, there's several examples of parallelism in Capote's writing. And just a reminder, parallelism means that the sentences are the same in the way they're structured, or within a sentence, the structure is the same. So the easiest example of this is in a list, when you list things and each item of the list matches structurally. So it does not require any repetition of words, it's more repetition of structure. So I think some of you are not very comfortable with parallelism, and that's why I thought we should practice this. So make an attempt, pull out an example that you think is parallelism, write about why and the effect of it, post that to the question I'm going to put on Google Classroom, and then you'll also see your peers' postings, and I'll add some comments too, and this should give us a good sense of our understanding of parallelism and also help us to analyze it effectively. So again, this would be a good time to pause, find an example of parallelism in 3 through 5, post it on Classroom, and then come back to the presentation. All right, the last thing is more for my people who are reading the book and reading it in its entirety and kind of interested in the story and the writer and all of that. So if you are not reading it in its entirety, maybe you can probably stop at this point. Though there is a slide at the end about a Flipgrid post, so you could check out my Flipgrid post. But this is just a little info, which you could certainly pause and read. I'm going to highlight a few things. Capote had theorized before he wrote this book that journalism and creative writing could come together in this form that he called a nonfiction novel. And so before he wrote In Cold Blood, he definitely had this idea that he wanted to write a nonfiction novel. Again, this is not a new form to us now. We're used to the nonfiction novel, essentially a book that is written about true things, but reads like a fictional story. It reads very much like a novel. And so it was new. Capote invented it. Okay, so it was new for his time. And he realized as he learned about this story of the Clutter family murder that it would be the perfect story to write in a nonfiction novel. And so this quote from him, "The human heart being what it is, murder was a theme not likely to darken and yellow with time." So he's really thinking about writing a story that could withstand time and make him famous, essentially. So the reason I bring that up is I think it's interesting to read this book with that in mind, that Capote was very purposefully crafting a book that read like a novel. And I want you to be thinking about why. Like, what does that add? What's his purpose with that? And so some things to think about as you continue to read is what are you noticing about the way the sections are organized? So right now, part one, how is that organized? I'm going to bring up one example. If you think about the plot diagram, if you remember learning about that, like with the exposition, the rising action, the climax, and then the falling action and the resolution, part one really reads like exposition in a lot of ways, right? It's setting up setting, it's setting up character, and it's setting up conflict. So when I think about the novel form, I'm realizing that Capote is very much using part one to start the story, to get us going, right? And next we're going up into the rising action. So again, just keep thinking about how he's structuring this book and why. I posted something on Flipgrid about suspense, which I think is really integral in this book, and I think it's cool to look at and think about. And just thinking about what other aspects of the novel form are in this book. Okay, so we can have a discussion about these topics, as I say here, later. But these are things you can think about and annotate for and post Flipgrid posts about whenever you would like. Okay, so the last thing is if you like seeing people's faces and you like talking through books and you want to get involved in some kind of discussion, I did post a Flipgrid, and you're welcome to join in there and ask any questions and engage with the conversation that's happening there. Okay, so you can look at my Flipgrid post and then feel free to post anything if you would like. All right, hope you're enjoying the book, and we will read part two, which is called Persons Unknown, for next Thursday. Okay, all right, see ya.